Ford says the F-150 is built tough, but what happens when we take it beyond what it was designed for? We're talking extreme off-roading, mud pits, rock crawling, and brutal hill climbs. Will it survive, or will we break it? You won't believe what gave out first, and it's not what you'd expect. In today's video, we're pushing a Ford F-150 to its absolute limits to see what really breaks under extreme conditions. By the end, you'll know whether this truck can handle the abuse or if it's all just marketing hype. We'll be testing suspension, frame durability, electronics, and even interior wear and tear, so stick around, because you don't want to miss what we uncovered. Let's get into it and see if the F-150 can live up to its legendary reputation. The Ford F-150 is America's best-selling truck for a reason. It's built to haul, tow, and tackle tough terrain. But today, we're going way beyond tough. This isn't just your average truck review. We're taking this thing off the pavement and into the wild to see if it can truly handle the abuse. Over the years, the F-150 has evolved with aluminum body panels, advanced suspension, and high-tech features. But is it as rugged as the older, all-steel models? Or does it hold up better than its rivals like the Chevy Silverado and Ram 1500? We're about to find out, because numbers and specs on paper don't mean much when you're bottoming out on a rocky trail. Why this test matters right now. Trucks today aren't just workhorses. They're also daily drivers loaded with luxury features. But can they still take a serious beating off-road? We're testing not just performance, but also reliability, because the last thing you want is a breakdown in the middle of nowhere. F-150 torture test. What survived, what failed, and is it worth it? All right, let's get into the real test. The Ford F-150 comes with a range of features designed for off-roading, but how do they hold up when pushed to the limit? We'll be testing the suspension, frame strength, drivetrain, electronics, and even interior durability. And trust me, some of these results will surprise you. Test number 1. Suspension and ride quality. First up, the suspension. Ford gives you different setups depending on the trim. Basic coil springs, off-road shocks, or even the fancy Fox Live valve shocks on the Raptor. The question is, does it actually smooth out rough terrain, or are you getting shaken like a soda can? On paper, these shocks should absorb big hits, but when we took it through a rocky trail at speed, well, let's just say our backs have some thoughts. Test number 2, frame and durability. Next, let's talk about the frame. Ford switched to a high-strength, military-grade aluminum body back in 2015, and people were skeptical. Comparison to competitors. Some say it's weaker than steel, while others argue it's just as tough, but lighter. So we did what any rational person would do. We bashed it into some obstacles. Insert slow-mo footage of an underbody impact. Surprisingly, the frame held up better than expected. But there was one weak spot. Test number 3. Drivetrain and power. All right, so power matters. The F-150 gives you a buffet of engine choices, from the reliable 5.0-liter V8 to the high-output EcoBoost. Ford claims the EcoBoost has V8-level power, but does it actually deliver, or is it just turbo hype? When we hit steep inclines, we noticed something interesting. It's got the power, but can the transmission handle the stress? Tease upcoming breakdown issues. Test number 4. Electronics and off-road tech. Modern trucks come with more tech than some luxury cars. The F-150 has terrain management, trail control, and a fancy 360-degree camera. But here's what you won't read in the brochures. Electronics and water don't mix well. After a deep mud run, let's just say not all the sensors made it out alive. Test number 5. Interior durability. Finally, let's talk about the interior. Ford designed this truck to handle rough conditions, but can it survive spilled coffee, muddy boots, and the occasional flying elbow? Because let's be honest, most of us use our trucks as mobile offices, fast food dining rooms, and sometimes a hotel. Surprisingly, the seats held up, but one part of the cabin started falling apart way too soon. Hint at a big problem. So, after all that abuse, what actually broke? And more importantly, was it a deal breaker? Turning point introduction. And this is where things get really interesting. We've pushed the Ford F-150 through brutal terrain, deep mud, steep climbs, and high-speed abuse, but now it's time to reveal what actually failed. Some things held up way better than expected, but others, not so much. The first major failure. Let's start with the first unexpected weak spot. Remember that rough trail test? Well, we heard a strange noise after one particularly nasty hit, and it wasn't just a rock bouncing off the skid plate. Play an ominous mechanical clunk sound. Turns out one of the suspension components didn't exactly love what we put it through. Now, for a truck that's marketed as built Ford tough, that's not what you want to hear. A lot of people argue that modern trucks are too soft compared to older all-steel beasts. So does this prove them right? Well, not entirely. Here's why. The biggest shock of the test. But the biggest surprise wasn't the frame, the suspension, or even the engine. It was something much smaller, yet way more frustrating. After a deep water crossing, the truck started throwing error codes. And that's when we realized the fancy off-road tech, while awesome when it works, has a major Achilles heel. We lost some sensor functionality, and let me tell you, nothing kills your confidence off-road faster than a truck that suddenly doesn't know which way is up. Strong personal opinion for impact. This isn't just an F-150 problem, it's a modern truck problem. More tech equals more things that can fail, and when you're miles from civilization, that's the last thing you need. For hardcore off-roaders, this might be a deal breaker, but for the average truck owner, that depends on how much risk you're willing to take. So after all this punishment, is the F-150 still standing? Or did we push it past the point of no return? Let's wrap it up. All right, so after putting the Ford F-150 through some of the toughest conditions imaginable, here's the bottom line. The frame? Solid. It took a beating and didn't flinch. The suspension? It held up, mostly, but we did find a weak spot under extreme stress. The drivetrain? Plenty of power, but modern transmissions can be a weak link when pushed too hard. Electronics? This is where things got tricky. The F-150's tech is incredible, until it's not. And if you're heading off-grid, that's something to keep in mind. Final clear recommendation. So should you buy the F-150 for hardcore off-roading? If you're sticking to moderate trails and weekend adventures, this truck will handle just about anything you throw at it. But if you're planning on tackling extreme, rock-crawling, survival-level terrain, you might want to consider upgrading key components, or looking at something purpose-built like a Raptor, or even a heavy-duty truck. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Do you think the F-150 lived up to the hype, or were you expecting it to fail harder? And if you enjoyed this real-world torture test, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, because we've got even crazier tests coming up. Tease future content. Next week, we're putting a completely stock Toyota Tacoma against a fully modified Jeep Wrangler in the ultimate off-road showdown, so don't miss it. All right, guys, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.